House will come to order. House will come to order. Members, please take your seats. The hour convening having arrived, all members will please take your seats. Mr. Clerk, will you please ring the bell? We're going to have the morning roll call. All members present will please vote green to signify their presence in the chamber, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. Just come down front and sign. Doorkeepers will please close the doors and keep them closed. As is our custom, we will begin our day with scripture reading and prayer by the chaplain, after which we will pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Our chaplain this morning will be introduced by the gentleman from the 176th House District, Whip James Burchett. Representative Burchett.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues, and welcome to Sine Die. I have the distinct honor and pleasure to introduce one of my good friends, but I got to clear something up very quickly. He is a good friend of mine and a great pastor, but he happens to be in one of my other good friends' district, John Corbett. So thanks for allowing me to poach a little bit in your territory there, Mr. Corbett. We share Ware County, and Dr. Lynn Barber is a pastor there in Maynard, Georgia, which is what, as the crow flies, as we say in South Georgia, only about 2.5 miles from my house. So we're happy to have Dr. Lynn Barber just shortly. He's the Assistant Superintendent of Ware County Schools. He's been also the CTA Director for a long time, and introduced my son and my family to hog showing. And if any of you have ever done any hog shows, it's a very interesting and has a distinct smell when you're showing those hogs. He's got 2 daughters, Colleen and Courtney, who has helped my son to learn the trade of showing hogs, and I'm just very happy to have him here. He's the lead pastor and sole pastor of Maynard United Methodist, and without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to Dr. Lynn Barber.
Thank you, sir. Great to have you.
Well, good morning. It is an honor to stand before you today, and I was sitting here, Representative Burchett, and I noticed this chamber looks a lot like our church because there's a big clock on the back wall, and you can rest assured I know what that clock is for. So, but I am thankful to be here today. I'm glad to have my wife Lori here with me. She's also an educator in Ware County, and we are blessed in Ware County, not only to have two great representatives, and Representative Burchett and Corbett, but also call them friends. So it's a pleasure to be here today, especially on this day. A lot can happen in 40 days, amen? And so I come to you today, and first of all, just want to say thank you. Thank you for the work that you've done during this session, and thank you for the work that you do for the great state of Georgia. One of my favorite passages in the Old Testament, or books actually, is the book of Nehemiah in the Old Testament. And one man, Nehemiah, was sent on a mission by the king to rebuild the walls and the gates of Jerusalem. And God laid that mission on his heart, and he set forth to do just that. And many of you are serving in this chamber today because you felt a burden to serve, you felt a call to lead, you saw some things that you thought, hey, I can lend a hand in that area, and you came to do that. And so we commend you for that vision of making Georgia a better place. Nehemiah was sent to Jerusalem. He got there, he found some folks willing to work, but you know what? He also found some folks that came against him. He found some people that tried to talk about his work behind his back, came at him from different angles. Sounds a little bit like politics, doesn't it? So you may know how Nehemiah felt, but you know he pressed on. He pressed on and he kept after it. And we find in chapter 3 of that book a lot of people engaged in the work. And I enjoy reading that chapter. It's a long chapter, but you find one of my favorite verses is each person rebuilt a section of the wall in front of his own house. And boy, that speaks volumes right there to the role we have to play in our homes and our families, in this house, wherever it may be. We each have a role to play in rebuilding something. And they worked together. In chapter 4, verse 6, it reads, "So we built the wall, and the wall was joined together to half its height because the people had a mind to work." Folks, a lot can get done when people have a mind to work, amen? And praise the Lord for a state like ours where things are working and things are going well, and we have a lot to be thankful for. But I don't know if you caught the last part of that verse. It said they built the wall to half its height. The wall was not completed. There was still work to be done. And you are here today on the final day of the session. And for some of you, some things might be complete. Some things might have gotten done that you're working on. And for some of you, you may say there's still work to do. All of you, there will still be work to do. There will still be work ahead. And the good thing about this day, that sine die does not mean it is finished. There's only one thing that's truly finished. And we'll celebrate that next Friday, on Good Friday, when we celebrate the words that Jesus Christ issued from the cross, where he says, "It is finished." But your work is just adjourned after today. And we know that you'll go home because this is a part-time, this is a full-time job you have with part-time pay. And the work's going to continue. And even though you may leave the capital and go back to your district, you're still getting phone calls. You're still working on issues. And the work will resume at some point. So just like Nehemiah, just have a mind to work. I'm here today to encourage you for the work you've done, to thank you for it, and to let you know that, hey, let's seek the blessing of the Lord as we continue to work forward together. And in that spirit, I would just ask you to stand at this time as we have our prayer, and then remain standing for the pledge to the flag. Father God, we come this morning in a spirit of thanksgiving, giving glory and honor to you for what can be accomplished when the people have a mind to work. May you bless this body in the state of Georgia with the favor that Moses asked for in Psalm 90 when he wrote, "Let the favor of the Lord our God be upon us, and establish the work of our hands upon us." Yes, establish the work of our hands. Father, we thank you for every representative here who has left home and family to do the work of the people. We thank you for the vision that you have given each man and woman who serve in this house. Lord, for areas of work you've shown them that need to be rebuilt and restored, we thank you for the work that has been accomplished during this session. And Lord, we know that all work is hard. We also know that this work we call politics can be hard. Relationships are built, but they can also be strained. And Lord, we praise you for those here who are examples of civility and statesmanship, even in the midst of hard-fought battles. Lord, we ask for your blessings upon our state, its leadership, and its people. We ask for you to pour out on those here a double portion of wisdom, discernment, grace, and a spirit of service. May you bless each legislator as he or she leaves Atlanta and goes back home. Bless them in the time between the sessions as they continue to represent us. Bless them in their homes and in their work. And we pray that you will continue to bless our state. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen. Would you join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, members, I have a question. I appreciate the pastor noting our salaries. I think maybe Chairman Whip Burchett was setting the stage on his tithing amount when he discussed that low salary. I'm not sure if that was the case or not. Pastor, we appreciate those words, and thank you for being here and making the effort to come all the way to Atlanta and speak to us. It was a great message. Thank you. Doorkeepers may unlock the doors. Members, you may join the pastor in the South Ante room and have a photo if you'd like to do so. House will come to order. Chairman Tarvin, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, is recognized. Y'all listen up. Give your full attention to the chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Information and Audits has read the journal from the previous legislative day and found it to be correct. And Mr. Speaker, I appreciate you. I want to ask to have a little bit extra time this morning. I want to thank the people of this chamber for listening to me every morning. And today, something that's very important to me, and as I watch the national news, I see concerns. I had a very excellent, believe it or not, elementary school education. And I love those people, and they remain friends of mine till their death. And but they taught me some things that weren't exactly right, and after I got older I found out. And the thing that's real dear to me is the U.S. Constitution. And some things I was taught earlier in life are not exactly what it says. And after I got older, I read the Constitution and studied the Federalist Papers and the writings of James Madison, who was at every day of the convention and took notes and saw what the intent. I want to challenge this group to read the Constitution, 4,400 words without the first 10 amendments, and it was find out the intent and what the purpose of the Bill of Rights was. It's very important, and what brought this to mind was today's quote that I'm going to give you. It was an original that you probably hadn't heard before, and I saw where a governor of a state was being refused by the students to allow to speak at a state institution. And if we've come to the point that we cannot speak publicly, no matter what your beliefs are, we're in trouble. And we were taught that by Madison that the Constitution needed to be adhered to, no matter if it pinched or pleased. And so today my quote is, "This republic, not strictly adhering to the Constitution, is likened to a rudderless ship pushed to and fro by the ever-changing winds." Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. All that know you know that you're a scholar, and I mean that very sincerely. We appreciate your work, we appreciate your friendship, and we appreciate your deep held beliefs. Chairman Tarvin, the chair of the Committee on Information and Audits, reports that the journal of the previous legislative day has been read and found to be correct. Is there any objection to dispense with the reading of the journal? The chair hears none. The reading of the journal is dispensed with. Is there any objection to the confirmation of the journal? The chair hears none, and the journal is confirmed. Mr. Chairman, I think that's 40 times you've done that, and you've done an excellent job, so we appreciate your sticking with us and getting the job done. I think this is your 40th time that you've acted as chair of Information and Audit, so we appreciate your words during this session. Thank you very much. Mr. Clerk, will you read the resolution establishing the order of business for the day?
Representative Administration of the 104th moves following be establishes the order of business in her first part of the period, unanimous consents. Introduction of bills and resolutions, first reading and reference of House bills and resolutions, second reading of bills and resolutions, reports of standing committees, third reading and passage of uncontested local bills and resolutions, morning orders.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the resolution establishing the order of business for the day? The chair hears none, and the resolution is adopted. Mr. Clerk, first reading of bills and resolutions, the clerk will read.
House Bill 830 by Representative Silcox of the 53rd, Evans of the 57th, Daniel of the 117th, Renner of the 85th, Reeves of the 99th, and others. A bill be titled Act to provide comprehensive state civil rights laws protecting individuals.
Judiciary.
House Bill 831 by Representative Paulo of the 33rd, a bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 6 and Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to legislative retirement systems.
Retirement.
House Bill 832 by Representative Paul, the 33rd, a bill being titled an act to amend Chapter 41 and Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to residential and general contractors.
Governmental Affairs.
House Bill 833 by Representative Carson, the 46th, Crow, the 118th, Lumsden to the 12th, Hitchens, the 161st, Corbett to the 174th. Bill be titled Act to amend Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to retirements and pensions.
Retirement.
House Bill 834 by Representative Powell, the 33rd, Smith to the 18th, Lever to the 123rd. Bill be titled an act to amend Code Section 244414 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to evidence of similar transactions in child molestation cases.
Juvenile Justice.
House Bill 835 by Representative Meeks, the 178th, Corbett, the 174th, Bentley, the 150th, Carpenter, the 4th, Scoggins, the 14th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 2 of Title 47 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to the Employees Retirement System of Georgia.
Retirement.
House Bill 836 by Representative Scoggins, the 14th, Gullah to the 19th, Bonner the 73rd, Kelly the 16th, Knight of the 134th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Part 3 of Article 16 of Chapter 2 of Title 20 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to health and of elementary and secondary school students.
Education.
House Bill 837 by Representative Barrett of the 24th, Jones of the 25th, McDonald of the 26th, Cox of the 28th, Jaspers of the 11th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend an act creating the Forsyth County Board of Registration and Elections.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Bill 838 by Representative Rhodes, the 124th, McLean, the 109th, Collins, the 71st, Williams, the 148th, and Douglas, the 78th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 2, Title 39 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to regulation of employment of minors.
Industry and Labor.
House Bill 839 by Representative Dempsey, the 13th, Hutchinson, the 106th, Cooper, the 45th, Powell, the 33rd, Ridley, the 6th. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 10A of Title 43 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to professional counselors, social workers, and marriage and family therapists.
Interstate Cooperation.
House Bill 840 by Representative Fleming of the 114th, McDonald of the 26th, Scoggins the 14th, Barrett of the 24th, Crow of the 118th, and others. Bill be titled an act to amend Chapter 1 of Title 51 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to general provisions as pertaining to torts.
Is that 839?
That's 840.
Judiciary.
House Bill 841 by Representative Beverly, the 143rd, Draper, the 90th, Roberts, the 52nd. The bill be titled an act to amend Article 1 of Chapter 2 of Title 46 of the Official Code of Georgia Annotated relating to organization and members of the Public Service Commission.
Governmental Affairs.
House Resolution 653 by Representative Carter, the 93rd, Kendrick, and the 95th, Moore, the 91st. A resolution urging the Rockdale County Board of Commissioners to hire a professional county manager.
Intergovernmental Coordination.
House Resolution 712 by Representative Gamble, the 15th, Irwin of the 32nd, Scoggins the 14th, and Mathis the 149th. A resolution urging the Georgia High School Association to move golf to the fall season.
Education.
That completes first readers.
Second reading of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
House Bill 813 by Representative Anderson of the 10th, the bill relating to intercorporation and municipal corporations. House Bill 814 by Representative Camp of the 135th, Williams of the 148th, the bill relating to imposition rate, computation, exemptions, and credits relative to income taxes. House Bill 815 by Representative Davis of the 87th, Scott of the 76th, and Schofield of the 63rd, a bill relating to incorporation of municipal corporations. House Bill 816 by Representative Davis of the 87th, Scott of the 76th, Schofield of the 63rd, a bill relating to selling and other trade practices. House Bill 817 by Representative Davis of the 87th, Scott of the 76th, Schofield of the 63rd, and Bernal of the 77th, a bill relating to special purpose grand juries. House Bill 818 by Representative Davis of the 87th, Scott of the 76th, Schofield of the 63rd, a bill relating to revenue and taxation. House Bill 819 by Representative Davis of the 87th, Scott of the 76th, Schofield of the 63rd, a bill relating to insurance. House Bill 820 by Representative Powell of the 33rd, a bill relating to powers and duties of the Board of Natural Resources, designation of Commissioner and Director as Board's agent, and power and duties of Director. House Bill 821 by Representatives Hughley of the 141st, Buckner of the 137th, Reese of the 140th, a bill relating to Teachers Retirement System of Georgia. House Bill 822 by Representative Carpenter of the 4th, Daniel of the 117th, Cooper of the 45th, Silcox of the 53rd, Clark of the 108th, a bill relating to competencies and core curriculum under the Quality Basic Education Act. House Bill 823 by Representative Bentley of the 150th, a bill relating to the Georgia Legislative Retirement System. House Bill 824 by Representative Carson of the 46th, Hitchens of the 161st, Crow of the 118th, Lumsden of the 12th, Chokas of the 151st, and others, a bill relating to the Employees Retirement System of Georgia. House Bill 825 by Representative Fleming of the 125th, Leverett of the 123rd, a bill relating to the Judicial Retirement System. House Bill 826 by Representative Martinez of the 111th, Hilton of the 48th, Ballard of the 147th, Silcox of the 53rd, New of the 64th, a bill relating to primaries and elections. House Bill 827 by Representative Smith of the 18th, Dickey of the 145th, Perkle of the 169th, Leverett of the 123rd, Hagan of the 156th, and others, a bill relating to livestock theft. House Resolution 599 by Representative Gunter of the 8th, a resolution supporting the Community Champions Initiative. House Resolution 600 by Representative Davis of the 87th, a resolution proposing an amendment to the Constitution so as to waive the state's defense of sovereign immunity regarding actions of the Board of Regents of the University System of Georgia. House Resolution 601 by Representative Campbell of the 35th, Hughley of the 141st, Paris of the 142nd, Evans of the 57th, Westbrook of the 163rd, and others, a resolution to ratify a proposed amendment to the United States Constitution through second readers.
Reports of standing committees, the clerk will read.
Representative Smith of the 139th, Chairman of the Committee on Rules, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Rules has had under its consideration the following resolution of the House. It's instructed me to report same back to the House following recommendations. House Resolution 651 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Smith of the 139th District, Chairman. Representative Beth Camp of the 135th District, Chairman on Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Local, submitted the following report. Mr. Speaker, your Committee on Intergovernmental Coordination Local has had under its consideration the following bills and resolutions of the Senate and has instructed me to report same back to the House following recommendations. Senate Bill 295 do pass. Senate Bill 310 do pass. Senate Bill 312 do pass. Senate Bill 313 do pass. Senate Bill 314 do pass. Senate Bill 315 do pass. Senate Bill 316 do pass. Senate Bill 317 do pass. Senate Bill 288 do pass. Senate Bill 303 do pass. Senate Bill 305 do pass. Senate Bill 306 do pass. Senate Bill 309 do pass. Senate Bill 311 do pass. Respectfully submitted, Representative Beth Camp in the 135th District, Chairman. That completes the reading of the reports of standing committees.
Okay. Members, please take your seats. We're going to move on to the local calendar. Local calendar. I promise you, I can see that anteroom, and there's no one out there. It's vacant. It looks like a desert. So if you have conversation, members, you need to find a place to have it. That's not on this floor. Five bills on the local calendar relate to homestead exemption and require a recorded two-thirds roll call vote for passage. Third reading and passage of uncontested local bills. If there is no objection, we will vote on the local calendar as a whole with a recorded vote. Hearing none, it is so ordered. Mr. Clerk, will you read the local calendar?
Senate Bill 295 by Senator Gooch, the 51st, Lumpkin County. Senate Bill 303 by Senator Halpern of the 39th, Fulton County. Senate Bill 310 by Senator Redd of the 33rd, City of Powder Springs. Senate Bill 312 by Senator Anderson of the 43rd, Rockdale County. Senate Bill 313 by Senator Anderson of the 43rd, Rockdale County. Senate Bill 314 by Senator Anderson of the 43rd, Rockdale County. Senate Bill 315 by Senator Anderson of the 43rd, Rockdale County. Senate Bill 316 by Senator Anderson of the 43rd, Rockdale County. Senate Bill 317 by Senator Estevez of the 6th, City of Atlanta. Senate Bill 288 by Senator Parent of the 42nd, City of Decatur. Senate Bill 305 by Senator Jones of the 10th, City of Hampton. Senate Bill 306 by Senator Jones of the 10th, City of Hampton. Senate Bill 309 by Senator Jones of the 10th, City of Hampton. Senate Bill 311 by Senator Anderson of the 43rd, Newton County.
Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? On the local calendar, the chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bills? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall these bills now pass? All those in favor of the passage of the bills on the local calendar will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machines. On the passage of the bills on the local calendar, the yeas are 163, the nays are 2. These bills, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore passed. Members, we're going to introduce, so give your attention to the gentleman in the well as he introduces our doctor of the day. Give your attention. Dr. Head's given her time to be with us, and we appreciate it. So give your attention. Representative from the 59th, Representative Phil Lallier, will introduce the physician of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. It is my pleasure to introduce to you all today's Doctor of the Day, Dr. Delphine Head. Dr. Delphine Head is an incredible physician, a good friend of mine. She is a family practice primary care physician with the Southeast Kaiser Permanente Medical Group. She provides care at the Kaiser location down in Cascade. She chose family medicine because she enjoys developing relationships with her patients and treating generations of families. She truly believes that she was born to be a physician and is excited to fulfill her purpose in life. Dr. Head has been an incredible advocate for her community, a supporter of mine on the campaign trail, and now as an elected official, and it is my pleasure to be introducing Dr. Head to this body this morning. Dr. Head.
Thank you, Representative Olalaye. Mr. Speaker, and other representatives and distinguished guests. And thank you all for the warm welcome. It's a pleasure and an honor to serve as Doctor of the Day. It's also a privilege to serve Georgia as a member of the Southeast Permanente Medical Group through Kaiser Permanente. While some of you may not be familiar with our practice, we are the largest physician-owned, physician-led medical group in Atlanta. I practice at the Kaiser Permanente at Cascade Medical Office, which is one of our 26 locations. And as my bio says, I am honored to practice medicine in the same community where I was raised. Because I'm an Atlanta native, I have lost count how many times I have passed by this iconic building. So it's an honor for me to actually be serving here once again. It's more meaningful than words can say. So thanks again for the warm welcome, and I look forward to serving you on today, and I promise there are no co-payments involved.
Dr. Head, we appreciate you being here, and thank you for your service. We're going to move on to morning orders. Last time I checked, this is day 40. So I'm going to remind you of something on day 40, and we can contemplate it over the time that we're back home working for our constituents. This will take just a second if I can have your attention. This concerns morning orders. Y'all have done a good job with morning orders on making sure we recognize our guests that are here. So if you'll listen up, I'll read you. I know you can all read, but I'm going to remind you of Rule 40.1. Morning orders shall be ordered immediately prior to the reading of bills and resolutions for the third time unless otherwise ordered by the Speaker. There shall be a 10-minute period during which members wishing to engage in a morning order may speak, provided, however, that no member may speak for more than 5 minutes. Some of you are challenged by that one. All requests to speak must be received by the messenger, or as the Speaker may designate, or as I designate the messenger, or as far in advance as possible. Speaker shall allocate the time members can speak up to the overall time limit. Now this one's important. Morning orders are limited to the purpose of acknowledging individuals or groups in the gallery. I know we've done a great job of that. I'm not reading that rule for any reason other than to remind you, and as you prepare yourself when we come back here in January of 2024, as you acknowledge your constituents and very important issues that may arise in all of our lives, This is how we should conduct morning orders. We've been, as y'all know, we have people who travel distances to be in the gallery to be recognized. We've been very lenient to make sure that those people are recognized. So as this house moves forward, as we tend to the business of this house in the future, when we come back here, I hope all of y'all will help me stay on track, and as we are going to do this morning. So we're going to recognize members for morning orders. If you'll give them your attention. No, we're not going to do a time. I'm going to trust them to be short and to the point, but certainly acknowledge those that need acknowledging. Representative Rhonda Taylor is recognized for a morning order. Representative Taylor. Y'all remember I told y'all about on deck. You know what that means? Be ready. Representatives New, Hagan, Seabaugh, and Williams.
Good
Ladies
morning. Thank you,
recognized,
Mr.
and her
Speaker.
friend.
Thank you. Colleagues, please help me wish and, recognize on the final day of session and the continuing celebration of National Women's History Month. We have in the gallery with us today Miss Hung Young Chow. If you would please stand so that you could be seen. Miss Young owns several businesses in Rockdale County, and she is an advocate arriving from South Korea in 1989, and she has done so much in our community and to build businesses and to make sure people have employment. And I just wanted to recognize her as a woman on the move, and I thank you so much for coming. If you would join me in giving her a hand clap, please. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, and welcome to the People's House. So, Representative Kimberly New, and she has some friends. Representative Hagan. Representative Seabaugh. So you've got good friends.
I do.
Ladies recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members of the House. Today is a very special day. We have some great guests here. We have a world-class soapbox derby winner, Alexa Guerin. Please stand up. She's up there in the gallery with her family, Roy and Sue Guerin, Petra and Sean Valdiviso. Would you all please stand? I'd like to congratulate Alexa Guerin for her outstanding performance at the 2022 National Derby Rallies and 2022 World Championship. She won a national title in 2021. The USDR Invitational secured both the Legacy and Round Bottom Division at the 2022 NDR Nationals and was recognized as the 2021 and 2022 National Points Champion. Alexa is a fourth-generation racer, began racing soapbox derbies in 2017, and as a result of her own hard work and dedication, she now places among the top drivers in the world. Although drivers attempt to qualify for the World Championship and make the All-Star in one division, this young lady has qualified for two, the Superstock and the Masters. This is an unprecedented feat that once was thought impossible. This amazing young lady epitomizes courage, determination, leadership, character, all necessary to attain excellence in athletic performance. She has earned the respect and admiration from her peers and her challengers. It is my honor to recognize Alexa Guerin and her family for outstanding performance and extend the best wishes for success in the future. Welcome to the People's House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Next stop, the Indy 500. No doubt about that. Congratulations. Chairman Wiedauer and friends from the Clark County delegation. Is that right? Yeah. I got y'all.
Good morning, colleagues. Today we rise. Jack Bowerly up in the balcony here. UGA's swim and diving coach for the last 44 years. Jack started coaching at UGA in 1979. Has brought home 7 national championships, 12 SEC championships, 62 different men and women winning 175 national championships. He's been the SEC Coach of the Year 18 times, Coach of the Year 7 times. He has coached for Team USA in the last 6 Olympic Games. He's helped produce 87 Georgia swimmers who became Olympians representing 20 different nations, earning 38 medals, including 16 gold medals. But Jack, the story I'll always remember is in a community swimming pool about 5 years ago. He was a lane timer. And these kids are barely making it across the pool, and he's writing their times down and submitting it like everybody should. And the lady running that end of the pool ran up to Jack and said, "Sir, I don't know if you know this, but there are hundredths on the time, and we need you to write that down to make sure we get this accurate." And he just said, "Yes, ma'am." Well, Jack, I want to congratulate you on an incredible tenure at UGA, but more importantly, thank you. Thank you for what you've done for our community. Thank you for what you've done for the state of Georgia, what you've done for the country. And the things you've done, the people that have been through your program come out better people for it. Thank you for everything you've done. Good job. Go Dogs.
Thank you, Coach. What an honor to have you in the house today. Thank you for your contribution to so many young people's lives. You certainly, you're a legend, and we're glad to have you here. Thank you so much. Representative Jasmine Clark is recognized for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning, colleagues. This morning, I want to welcome friends from the Emory School of Nursing to the gallery and to the Capitol today. They're here to see what we do down here at the People's House and also to meet some of their representatives. So the individuals from School of Nursing, could you please stand? Thank you so much for what you do for our state as you train to become one of the most trusted professions in the entire world and definitely in the country. We really, truly appreciate all that you do. Thank you for being here, and congratulations, and thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Good to have you, young people. Thank you for being here. Representative Marion's recognized for, there he is. Good morning, Representative. You're recognized for a morning order.
Buenos dias. Good morning. Sine Die. Love it. One of my favorite days in the whole 40-day session. I'm kidding, but we're ready to get out of here. I want this morning to rise and recognize someone that I consider a friend and someone that has been a steward for our Latino community, Douglas B. Rohan. He has long been recognized by the citizens of this state for the vital role that he has played in leadership and his deep personal commitment to the welfare of the citizens of Georgia. He has diligently, constitutionally devoted innumerable hours of his time, talents, and energy toward immigrant rights by serving as a voice for those who are disenfranchised, speaking against unjust bills, and educating members of this body on the benefits of common sense immigration reform. He's here with his family. I want you all to rise also as well. Please give a warm welcome to Doug and his family, and thank you for what you do for our Latino community and everybody else. Thank you, Doug. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Hey, how do you say sine die in Latin or in, how do you say sine die? Tell him.
So, Spanish 101, sine die, sin dia. Sin dia. Signing, sin dia. So, how about that?
We're out of here. Is that a motion?
Sin día quiere decir el último día, no más días, sin día. Ahí está.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you, guys. Thank
I'll
you, Mr.
try that
Speaker.
tonight. Thank you, gentlemen. Representative Patty Bentley is recognized for a morning order.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, today is a great day. You know why? Because it is Dooley County Day at the Capitol, and I'm so proud to have Representative Chairman Mike Chokas from Americus, Georgia, Representative Carolyn Hughley from Columbus, Georgia, and Representative Teddy Reeves from Columbus, Georgia. And ladies and gentlemen of the House, I ask that you please stand and help me pronounce. I need all of you to stand, please, and repeat after me. Dooley County. We're going to say it 1, 2, 3 now. Practice. Dooley County. So let's give a big round of applause to Dooley County School System, because it's their day at their state capitol. We're so proud to have Dr. Craig Lockhart, a graduate of the Fort Valley State. He's a superintendent for Dooley County School System, and we're so glad to have Dooley County represented here at their state capitol on the last day of session. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, colleagues.
Representative Daniel is recognized for a morning order. Representative Lauren Daniel. Representative Daniel. Give the lady in the well your attention, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm going to have some friends join me as well. Some of the women of the House that signed this resolution. It is Women's History Month this month, and so we dropped a resolution to recognize the women in our state that help our economy, and they take care of their families, and they're balancing all of these things. More than half of Georgia households are led by women breadwinners or co-breadwinners, and this resolution serves to recognize their contributions and our commitment to create policy that will provide support and security for women of the state of Georgia and their families. We do have some people in the gallery up here if you guys want to acknowledge them. 9 to 5 Georgia and Respect Georgia Workers Alliance has worked on countless measures of policy over the years, and so we are so thankful for them and look forward to continuing working with them. If you guys want to stand up. Welcome to the House. And also, I want to recognize the women in this chamber that are working women, because you all matter. So if you guys would like to stand up and be recognized, please stand up. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. For recognizing working women, Representative Scott, is your group here? You wave. We'll put you on afternoon orders just in case. Leader F. Stration is recognized for a morning order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to recognize my beautiful wife, Ashley, and my 2 boys, Charlie and James, as well as Jessica and Brittany from my office, who are here in the gallery here today. We love you. Thanks for making it possible for me to be down here. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It's good to have all the F. Strations in the house. Y'all got Dad's back, no doubt. 2 good guys up there. Good to see you guys. Members, we're going to take up a couple of other issues that I'll speak to you first about. We're going to take up some uncontested House resolutions. These are for study committees. Members of this House have indicated they would like to study a lot of important issues. Everyone that was submitted has great merit. So I'm going to suggest something to you. We're only going to appoint 2 House study committees. I'll also encourage you, those of you who have an interest in studying a particular issue, committee chairs understand the posture we're in, or the posture I'm in, as we addressed all of the issues that are important to Georgians. So, with that said, I encourage you to reach out to your committee chairs on the different subject matter, and I believe they will certainly accommodate you and have a hearing or multiple hearings on those subjects to work with you over the interim until we come back here in 24. So, with that, we're going to we're going to hear House Resolution 519 and House Resolution 603. If there is no objection, we will vote on the uncontested resolutions as a whole with a recorded vote. Hearing none, it is so ordered. The clerk will read the resolutions.
House Resolution 519 by Representative Jenkins, the 136, creating the House Study Committee on Fishing Access to Freshwater Resources. House Resolution 603 by Representative Cooper and others, creating the House Study Committee on Certificate of Need Modernization.
Is there an objection to the previous question being ordered on the resolutions? Chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which is favorable to the adoption of the resolutions? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Is there any objection to adopting the substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? The chair hears none. The Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Shall these resolutions now be adopted? All in favor of adoption of the resolutions will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. For what purpose does Chairman Hawkins rise? He waves, I guess, since his button was mashed. For what purpose does Representative Townsend rise?
Hit the wrong button, Mr. Speaker.
Makes me feel better about you. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the adoption of the resolutions, the yeas are 170 and the nays are 0. These resolutions, having received the requisite constitutional majority, are therefore adopted. House will come to order. We'll move on to the rules calendar. Getting closer to the end all the time. Clock's ticking. Mr. Clerk, no, Al, you're not, excuse me, no, Representative Williams, you're not recognized for that motion. I know the one you want to make, but you're not recognized. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption of Senate Bill 272?
Senate Bill 272 by Senator Kennedy, the 18th, and others to be entitled an act to Title 15 of the official code of Georgia Annotated relating to courts is amended so to supplement the duties of administrative judges, to reestablish a criminal case data exchange board, to repeal Code Section 15650.3 relating to the criminal case data exchange board. This bill having referred to the Committee on Judiciary and Non-Civil, that committee recommends that this bill do pass by committee substitute.
The gentleman from the 8th House District, Chairman Stan Gunther, is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Colleagues, Senate Bill 272 is an update to a bill passed by the General Assembly last year, Senate Bill 441. The intent behind that bill was to update the state's inadequate system for transmitting criminal histories, or history records. This bill builds off of last year's by improving on the work of the Criminal Case Data Exchange Board and placing the board and the Administrative Office of the Courts and Judicial, or I should say with the Administrative Office of the Courts and the Judicial Council. Currently, the board is attached to the Clerk's Council. The board's work over the last 9 months has shown that the problems with criminal records is bigger than simply the court clerks. It's an issue that spans the judiciary, and this bill moves that board to the appropriate agency that supports the state's judicial system. The bill continues to recognize the importance of the clerks to play in the transmission of criminal data and maintains their seat on the board. They are an integral part of this system, but are not the only players, because the records at issue are mainly generated by the judiciary and officers of the court. The Judicial Council and Administrative Office of the courts are best positioned to see to it that uniform standards are created and adopted. This bill also empowers judges to assist all courts within their circuits to comply with the criminal records transmission. It was estimated that 7 million criminal charges were without a final disposition, and 5.4 million of those have languished for years. Having open charges on file negatively impacts the ability of judges and criminal justice agencies to have accurate criminal history data, and further impacts our citizens' ability to get jobs, educational opportunities, and housing. I'll stand for any questions.
You do have a question now. Chair recognizes to your right, extreme right, behind you almost, Representative Vance Smith for a question.
Gentleman, yield.
I yield, thank you.
Isn't it true that the sharing of information is very, very important? And isn't it true, I have a clerk that was very concerned about this bill. She'd put in a lot of work, and so I just wanted to pass that along to the chairman.
Thank you, I appreciate that. The clerks are a very important part of all of this, but they don't have the constitutional authority over all the data producers, which are the courts themselves. And so this bill will put this with the Judicial Council. It should make it more efficient. As a district attorney years ago, I was noticing that criminal history reports were almost getting unreadable. By the time I left the bench, they were about unreadable. The software that's being used to create those histories was written back in the 70s, and so it's just an antiquated system. And I've been, as a person from the judicial branch, waiting like 16 years to get this fixed, and so I'm hoping that this will take care of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gentleman, yield for another question?
Yes.
May I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
Gentleman, yield. Is it not true that, just for the members to understand the perspective you have on the issue, that you served in a previous checkered past as a district attorney and as a Superior Court judge?
I do have a checkered past for sure.
Well, there is that. I'm sorry I said that about you now. I apologize. Representative Burchett, Whip Burchett is recognized for a question if you'll take one.
Thank you,
Yes.
Mr. Speaker. Does the gentleman yield?
I yield.
Isn't it true that the clerks are the keeper, for the most part, of all the records?
Yes, sir, that's true.
But isn't it also true, does the gentleman yield?
Yes.
Isn't it also true that this move will allow while the clerks are the keepers, they don't have the authority to ensure that the other parties that will be sharing their records will share their records. Isn't that also true?
That is correct, yes.
Thank you for bringing the bill.
Thank you.
The gentleman has no further questions.
Thank you. I ask for your favorable consideration. Thank you.
The gentleman has yielded well. We do have someone speaking in favor of the bill. Representative Marvin Lim is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I wanted to speak very briefly in enthusiastic support of Senate Bill 272. My contribution here came in discussing with practitioners earlier this year substantive policy around hate crimes, self-defense, and other such issues that we know get a lot of attention and that we may all have our opinions on, yet knowing and ultimately expressing to those practitioners that despite whatever our individual opinions, we don't necessarily have sufficiently robust data on many of these issues in order to successfully inform many possible substantive procedural or jurisdictional interventions. In my own previous work, looking at specifically self-defense and speaking to clerks, archivists, court personnel, as well as law enforcement, prosecutors, and public defenders, we knew that people were invoking various types of defenses and providing critical information at various stages of the process. However, this information was not being documented in anywhere close to a legible, reasonably consistent way across the many court jurisdictions where such information could be documented in very efficient and non-burdensome ways that would ultimately inform policy. With that, I appreciate these practitioners, Senator Kennedy and our Senate colleagues, for listening and working to conceive this bill. With this bill, we can take a huge steps towards doing all of this that I just mentioned, so I look forward to voting favorably on Senate Bill 272. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield the well.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? The chair hears none. The previous question is ordered. Is there any objection to adopting the committee's substitute? Chair hears none. The committee's substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? The chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no. And the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 146, the nays 21. The bill having received the requisite constitutional majority is therefore passed. clerk will read the caption to Senate Bill 6363.
Senate Bill 63 by Senator Robertson, the 29th, and others being titled an act to amend Chapter 6 of Title 17 in the official code of Georgia annotated relating to bonds and recognizance, so as to provide for the setting of bonds and the scheduling of bail. This bill then referred to the Committee on Judiciary Non-Civil. That committee recommends that this bill do pass by Rules Committee substitute.
Representative Houston Gaines is recognized to present the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This morning, pleased to present Senate Bill 63. This measure establishes Georgia as a state that won't accept the soft-on-crime policies that we've seen in places like New York, California, Illinois, where catch and release has resulted in criminals simply walking into the jail and walking right out. Unfortunately, in several counties in Georgia, we've seen increasingly letting repeat offenders, either out on no or small bond, serious criminals. And I have several examples I could point to where these were, again, serious charges that individuals walked right into the jail and walked right out with putting up no bond, whether it's rioting. I'm looking at several examples from counties throughout the state: theft, shoplifting, theft by deception, inciting rioting. There's example after example, unfortunately, throughout our state of this issue where we have soft-on-crime policies that are making communities across our state less safe. A recent study showed that in Fulton County alone, close to a third of the individuals released on no cash bail failed to show back up for their court date. The city of Atlanta and other counties and municipalities in Georgia have established no cash bail policies. This bill will simply require a judge to see those individuals before deciding on bail. It would even allow a judge to issue a 1 penny, $1, or a $1,000 bond. It just states that it must be secured bond. A lot of folks seem to be more worried about those committing the crimes, but really we should be worried about the victims of these crimes. We need to start putting a more focus on the individuals who are impacted by crime rather than those committing them, and making sure that we're addressing violent criminals throughout our state. Imagine being a store owner who's had his store broken into repeatedly, finding out the judge simply lets that individual who committed the crime out over and over and over on no cash bail. That's what's happening, unfortunately, in parts of our state, and this bill will help address that and make sure we don't follow in suit of places like New York and California and Illinois. And by the way, New York, of all places, has even started to backtrack on its no cash bail policy, saying how disastrous it's been for public safety in that state. Again, nothing in this bill prevents a judge from issuing a 1 penny bond on any of these charges, a $1 bond on any of these charges. They can continue to have a standing order. That's an issue we've seen, and that's a part of this bill addresses is standing orders throughout our state. They can have a standing order for a $1 bond, but the folks in that community should be aware of what those judges are doing and letting folks out on a $1 bond instead of, again, what we've seen in no cash bail. So this bill really, again, to sum it up, has two key objectives: ensuring that cities and counties that have established blanket no cash bail policies, this bill addresses that issue. It says that criminal violations, including municipal violations that are subject to confinement, will require an individualized bond hearing before a judge. There'll be no more catch and release on municipal violations that are subject to confinement. And it adds a number of offenses such as street racing to the list of bail-restricted offenses. Again, once more, that nothing prevents a judge from issuing a $1 bond on any of these charges, but they need to see a judge, and that's what this bill does. Mr. Speaker, I know there are several speakers lined up to speak to this measure, so I'll yield the well and ask for the body's favorable consideration of Senate Bill 63.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Here's our posture. We have a number of folks who like the language, and we have a number of folks who don't like the language. So we're going to allocate 30 minutes, up to 30 minutes on both of those propositions, and then we'll move on to a minority report and the chairman's time. Representative Kennard is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise this morning in opposition of SB 63. In a previous speech, I highlighted the fact that if you look behind the bars of Georgia State prisons, you'll see three groups that are overrepresented. One is the mentally ill, others are minority groups, and thirdly, the poor. So one can argue that in Georgia we have criminalized mental health, mental illness, we have criminalized race, and we have criminalized poverty. That is why Brian Stevenson, who wrote the book Just Mercy, he says that in our current criminal system, you're treated better if you're rich and guilty than if you're poor and innocent. Therefore, wealth, not culpability, is impacting our justice outcomes. Another way to put it is this: you get as much justice as you can afford. Please vote against SB 63. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman has yielded the well. Representative Kendrick is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to ask you to vote no to SB 63. And let me start with a story that I often tell in this chamber about how God has a sense of humor. So many of you know that I'm a lawyer and graduated from UGA 16 years ago, and I had to take criminal law my first year with Professor Dean Kurtz. And I will admit that out of the 4 degrees that I have, criminal law was my worst grade ever in life. So when the opportunity came for me to take criminal procedure, I said, no way. There's no way I'm ever going to use criminal law or need to know any criminal laws whatsoever. I was going to be a corporate attorney, which I actually am. But now I've served on the Judiciary Non-Civil Committee for the past 8 years. So God definitely has a sense of humor. But I'm actually glad that I didn't take criminal procedure, because the crash course that I've gotten on the Judiciary Non-Civil Committee has taught me a bunch of truths, but the main one it has taught me is this: the criminal justice system is not broken. It's fixed. It's fixed to be a revolving door, fixed to benefit those that can afford the best attorney, fixed to put everyone and anyone behind bars and to punish the least of these and those who cannot secure bonds. I will submit to you today that our criminal justice system is, in fact, not broken. It is fixed. So if you can turn with me to page 4 of SB 63 and look at lines 88 through 129. There are 31 new offenses proposed to be added to the statute for secured bonds. It's so extensive that Legislative Council had to start doing triple letters, and I don't think I've ever seen that in the last 13 years that I've been elected. Lines 151 through 52, lines 156 through 57, and lines 161 through 162 all restrict judges' ability to release the accused on an unsecured judicial release. So I'm going to ask this question again. This is my 3rd time asking it this session. Why do we have elected officials if all we're going to do is continue to tell them how to do their jobs? There isn't even consistency in the bill. If you look at lines 88, 93, 98, and 122, this bill only applies if this is the person's second or subsequent offense. Now that's very strange. Why don't the other offenses get as much grace? It makes you wonder. So in conclusion, y'all, I'm tired of getting up here telling how we are moving backwards in the state as opposed to forward. So I submit to you again that the criminal justice system is not broken. It is indeed fixed. So I'm asking you to vote no to SB 63. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the will.
The lady has yielded the well. Representative Nulowitz is recognized to speak to the bill. One of the best dressed ladies in the House.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise before you today as a woman dressed in white who is about to share with you a quote from the Man in Black. It was Johnny Cash who lamented that he wore black, these are his lyrics, for the poor and the beaten down. I'm not going to sing. For the poor and the beaten down, living in the hopeless, hungry side of town. I wear it for the prisoner who has long paid for his crime, but is there because he's a victim of the times. I appreciate those of y'all who are mouthing along with me. Not so long ago, Nathan Deal was governor of this state. I was honored to be sworn into this House in time to serve during his final year as governor. When I first came to this House, I was not sure what to expect from a Republican governor. But I quickly realized that Governor Deal was gracious and is gracious, thoughtful, and kind. I also did not expect to learn that he was a leader who was unafraid to wear his heart on his sleeve. I realized this the first time I visited the governor's mansion. It was Christmas time. It was a holiday reception. And I saw the tears in his eyes and heard the catch in his voice as he told us about the gingerbread models of Georgia courthouses that had been crafted there at the mansion by the trustees who worked at the mansion, the trustees, the inmates who served at the mansion, and who the governor and the First Lady, the late First Lady, often remarked that they thought of as part of their family. When Governor Deal left office in January 2019, there was widespread agreement that his most enduring legacy was his leadership and his commitment to criminal justice reform in Georgia. When Governor Deal came into office, 1 in 13 Georgians were either incarcerated, on probation, or on parole. Governor Deal realized that at that rate of incarceration, we would have no recourse but to spend more than $500 million on 2 new prisons. He knew there had to be a better way. And he led bipartisan policy initiatives to ensure that this better way that he knew could happen was a reality in Georgia. And despite the rhetoric that we're hearing today, by the way, we did pass a street racing bill in the last biennium. And by the way, because there is still prosecutorial discretion, I can think of one case in particular, a really tragic case, where 2 young people were killed as the result of street racing, and one of the people involved in that, who, by the way, left the scene of the accident, was allowed to be charged with only a misdemeanor. Neither here nor there. Despite that rhetoric that we're hearing today, the crime rate in Georgia decreased after these reforms were enacted by Governor Deal. Governor Deal and this General Assembly knew that Georgians, the folks back at home, who probably aren't watching this today, but the folks back at home, these Georgians knew that it does not make any sense at all to spend tens of thousands of taxpayer dollars each year just to incarcerate 1 nonviolent offender, 1 inmate. Governor Deal would muse, and I'm paraphrasing here, he would muse that there are the criminals who we're afraid of, and there are the criminals who we are mad at. This is a quote from Governor Deal. There comes a point when incarceration no longer serves a purpose. There comes a point where retribution ought to stop and rehabilitation ought to take over. SB 62 is just one more attempt to walk back Governor Deal's reforms, to walk back those reforms that had, in many cases, unanimous agreement in this chamber. It's just one more way to hack away at Governor Deal's legacy. Keep on shopping, right? So if this measure passes, what's next on the priority list for the folks who are perpetuating this regression of the reforms led by Governor Deal? Are we going to walk back our support for accountability courts? like the veterans courts that have transformed the lives of those who nobly served our nation, but who weren't always able to conquer the demons that followed them back to the home front. The drug courts and the other accountability courts that offer nonviolent offenders a second chance to be a father, a mother, a valued employee, an engaged citizen. The leadership that Governor Deal and the Georgia General Assembly shared and showed through our commitment during these years of successful criminal justice reforms took courage. It took courage. It took the courage of the leaders in this chamber. It took the courage of those of us who had to go and face accusations that we might be soft on crime. It took courage, and we showed that courage. We should all be so proud of that courage, and it is so vexing. This is why it is so vexing and disheartening to witness the cognitive dissonance that seems to have taken a hold of so many in this body who once worked so hard to enact these reforms. And it is for this reason that I urge you to vote against SB 63. I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. Whip Park is recognized to speak to the bill. Representative Park.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise in opposition to SB 63. This is yet another bad bill that the appearance of which is to look like we are being tough on crime. Again, we have the capacity as legislators in this information age to craft good policy based on an understanding of what works best. I don't understand why, despite all the bipartisan reform, we are continuing to undermine the legacy of Governor Deal, as Representative Anulowicz so eloquently stated. Those reforms not only helped build safer communities in the long run, they helped save taxpayer dollars. Now, let's go into this bill a little bit. This rule substitute that just came out a few hours ago, in which my colleagues and I will strongly oppose, again, because it is bad policy. I did have a few questions I wanted to initially raise of the presenter of the bill, though unfortunately I did not have an opportunity to do so. But to begin, the bill seems somewhat hastily drafted. I would direct members' attentions to lines 138 to 140 and how that essentially conflicts with lines 151 to 155 and subsection E. Lines 138 to 140 says, an elected judge, an appointed judge, or a judge sitting by designation may issue an unsecured judicial release if such unsecured judicial release is noted on the release order. That's current law that was clarified with a few edits. Yet if you look at lines 151 to 155 in particular, which is new law, now it's saying that no person charged with a bail-restricted offense shall be eligible for release by any judge on an unsecured judicial release. So we have current law saying a judge may issue an unsecured judicial release, and new law, this bill, stating that a judge may not do so. If this bill passes, what is a judge supposed to do on this issue? Clearly, I think this is an issue that needs additional time, as opposed to rushing something that yet again would undermine the good bipartisan work this body and this legislature has done over the years to help protect safer communities. Now, let's talk about this issue broadly speaking. Pretrial release is only available when a judge has determined that the accused poses no risk to public safety. So to argue that this bill will increase public safety is not true. Georgia law allows judges to release accused persons from jail pre-trial only after first determining that to do so will not create a substantial risk to public safety. So we're undermining judicial discretion. We're undermining their opinion, especially when they're in front of the facts of this case. Now, studies have shown that people who are detained pre-trial are more likely to be convicted and face longer sentences than those who are released before trial. Moreover, some studies have shown that pre-trial detention increases the likelihood of recidivism, as does extended involvement in the criminal legal system. At the same time, there is no consensus among experts that cash bail meaningfully increases the likelihood that a person will return to court for subsequent proceedings. So lawmakers hoping to encourage people facing criminal charges to return to court should explore proven solutions like text reminders and well-designed summon reforms. Again, SB 63 will undermine public safety and do nothing to reduce failure to appear rates. Along with limiting judicial discretion and bail determinations, as briefly mentioned, this bill will result in increasing the jail population across this state. So who does this bill really benefit if we're just going to have higher populations in our jails? Not only will that benefit our private prison industrial complex in this state, it will burden local governments and taxpayers while doing nothing again on public safety. SB 63 severely restricts the discretion of duly elected judges granted discretion to make individualized bond determinations. And if this bill becomes law, judges will be required to impose more financial conditions for pre-trial releases, resulting in the issuance of more secured bonds, higher pre-trial detention costs for local governments, and increased revenues to the bail bond industry. The presenter of this bill said $1 secured bonds. I'm not aware of whether or not you could get a $1 bond for something that's secured. My understanding is generally if it needs to be a secured bond, that requires property of significant value. What then would be the issue or the point of this bill if you're saying there's flexibility when there's no actual flexibility when it comes to this bill? Now, let's talk about the costly and dangerous expansion of the jail population that this bill will create. This bill will drastically increase the number of people held in local jails, exacerbating jail overpopulation, a problem that has already proven deadly. In Fulton County in 2022 alone, at least 14 people lost their lives while detained in jail, and these deaths were preventable. An October study of the population of Fulton County jails revealed that 12% of the people detained were in jail not because they posed a risk to public safety, but because they could not afford bail. Local governments are responsible for pre-trial detention costs, and SB 63, by increasing pre-trial detention, will force higher costs for cities and counties and expose local governmental bodies to costs associated with any litigation pursuant to jail overcrowding. When a person's liberty is in jeopardy, including through pre-trial detention, the due process principles of the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution are implicated. Substantive due process requires that a governmental infringement on liberty must be narrowly tailored to serve a compelling state interest. According to the U.S. Supreme Court, jailing a person solely because of their inability to supply a monetary payment violates the due process clause unless the person's ability to pay has been assessed and there is a finding that such non-payment was willful, or that no other means will serve the government's interest. This bill will harm poor people. This bill will create a two-tiered criminal legal system in the state of Georgia, one for those who can afford bond and one for those who cannot. We cannot simply lock poor people up as a solution to building safer communities. You can look tough on crime, but when your constituents continue to face violence in their communities, know that you have failed them by failing to actually address the problems, by the responsibility that we've been entrusted to pass good policy in the short run as well as in the long run to protect those who sent us here to to serve them. Our criminal legal system already disproportionately impacts the poor, and SB 63 will only underscore that reality by leaving them to languish in jail. For the working poor to lose their home, shelter, bed, job, and in some cases their children. That's what this bill will do. It will exacerbate poverty in this state. All of this increases the cost to the state of Georgia, because not only will that daily cost to the county jails increase, public financial support will be needed by many who eventually do get released from either jail or prison and return to their communities. Now, let's look through some of the amendments in this rule substitute. To begin with, striking out on line 66, a felony offense of, will open the door to requiring money bail for misdemeanor crimes beyond those already allowed in the family violence context. On lines 98 to 99, criminal trespass, even with second or subsequent offenses, may unnecessarily tax, again, the criminal legal system. To those who may be watching, this bill is restricting non-violent offenses, including a misdemeanor possession of marijuana on lines 107 to 108 of this bill. On lines 122 to 23, we are making the failure to appear in a second or subsequent offense a bail-restricted offense. Our criminal legal system, the fact is our criminal legal system, our data is riddled with errors and omissions, which was reflected in the creation of SB 441 from last year, which was an extension of a commission to troubleshoot and solve that problem. This bill not only limits judicial discretion, it will again continue to keep folks locked up in jail, which does not build safer communities. Now let's look through some of the nonviolent offenses, the nonviolent crimes in which there would now be a bail-restricted offense. Forgery, violation of oath of office, financial transaction card theft, crimes that we get mad at, but crimes that will not harm people. Again, this bill will not address the violence that we're facing today or create safer communities. Requiring court appearances on so many low-level, nonviolent crimes will only further cripple a criminal legal system that's been so severely impacted by the pandemic and further perpetuate the current backlog. Lastly, let's look at Section 6. Especially to my Republican friends and colleagues who care about civil asset forfeiture. Removing lines 205 to 210 from OCGA 17-672, subsection C.1, would allow bond forfeiture to proceed even when the person's failure to appear in court was due to deportation or removal from the United States by federal authorities. Families who have put up secured bond, cash or property, will be subject to losing those assets if the federal government removes or deports a person for whom the bond was posted prior to the resolution of the related criminal case. Again, this is a bad bill. This bill does not promote public safety. This bill only criminalizes and exacerbates the poor in this state, who we, especially those who proclaim their faith down here often, that we've been commanded to serve and take care of and lift up. This bill does none of those things and will only move the state of Georgia backwards. For all of these reasons, I strongly encourage this House to vote no to SB 63. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Now, those in favor have up to 30 minutes. Representative Anderson is recognized to speak to the bill. Representative Victor Anderson is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I will take just a few moments. I want to bring a little different perspective to this bill. I'm not an attorney, never pretended to be an attorney, but I am a former county commissioner and former chairman of the county commission. And I do know that in a rural county in Georgia, one of the most common questions that we were asked when I was serving on the commission, and just as a side note, people in local counties think the county commission controls everything, okay? So if you've served in that role, I think you'll agree with me, and I see a couple of heads nodding in here. But one of the most common questions we were asked is, why are people who commit crimes allowed to just walk in and walk out with no skin in the game, with nothing to hold them in place or nothing to be concerned about? So with that in mind, for the people in rural Georgia who are looking to this body to try to answer those questions that they've had for years, I do encourage voting in favor of this bill. Mr. Speaker, I yield the will.
Gentleman has yielded well. Chairman Petrie is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Ladies and gentlemen, I rise to support this measure, of course, but I want to hone in very briefly on one section of this bill, Section 6. And if you look at Section 6, this section deals with conditions not warranting forfeiture of a bond. So there are, for lay folks that are not lawyers, exemptions, exceptions to forfeiture of bond. And what this measure does is eliminates, you'll see in lines 205 through 210, it eliminates Section C1. Let me tell you what Section C1 is. You're going to be surprised at this. It's basically special treatment. It's special treatment today in statute for those that are here in this country illegally, who are bonded out, and then are deported. Because right now, they're exempt from forfeiture of bond. And I want you to ask yourself, why should that be? Why should illegal immigrants be treated specially? And so we have a scenario today that actually incentivizes those who have committed a crime in Georgia and then are bonded out, who then are deported, who never served trial in Georgia for the crime they committed on Georgians. We're incentivizing their being bonded out because there is no forfeiture of bond. My friends, there's no logical reason why this should be in this statute. I'm glad it's being removed. It should be removed. Everyone, I think, commonsensically knows that to be true. And I hope that you'll support this, not only because of this provision, but all the provisions in this good bill. I hope that you'll all join me in voting in favor of this measure. And Mr. Speaker, I yield the well.
Gentleman has yielded the well. Chairman Collins is recognized to speak to the bill. Chairman Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I don't come to the well very often to speak, but I want to take an opportunity to encourage every member of this body to support Senate Bill 63. Over and over again, we hear about the rights of criminals. We hear about, this is going to disenfranchise a certain group of people. I submit to you that by passing House Bill or Senate Bill 63, we're going to protect people in this state. There are a very small group of individuals who want to plague our communities through criminal activity. The courthouse has become, or the jail has become, a revolving door for a group of individuals. And we need to say no. We need to put a stop to this. And we need to speak up for victims of crime and stop people from becoming victims of this revolving door down at the county jail or at the city jail. It's absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion, that we even have to discuss this. There's so much that can be done to protect the public and keep people safe. And Senate Bill 63 is going to do that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well and ask for everyone's favorable consideration to Senate Bill 63 to protect persons and property in this state.
Representative Maynard is recognized to speak to the bill.
you, Mr. Speaker. I am going to be very quick. For the people in District 56 at least, it's really important to, what does the bill say, right? What does the bill say? What do the words on the paper say? And so if we go to line 20, it says, except as provided, the judge of any court of inquiry may, by written order, establish a schedule of bails, including local ordinances. The judge is deciding, not this piece of paper. The judge is deciding. Skip down to 24. Provided, however, that no bail schedule, local standing order, official policy, or local ordinance shall mandate releasing an accused on unsecured judicial release prior to the accused appearing before a judge. This is saying the accused must appear before a judge, one, before the bail can be set or even released. Now, what are the crimes that are listed in this bill that this bill is talking about? Do we want to release somebody that committed murder without bail? Robbery? Because this is what's on the paper. Do we want to release somebody for kidnapping without bail, rape, child molestation, sodomy, assault, battery, carjacking? People are carjacked in my community often. People in my community would be offended if we let somebody out for carjacking without bail. Pimping, gangs, DUIs. If someone is driving under the influence, they don't need a bail. Should we be releasing them on bail? Family violence. Some of the other things added: stunt driving, drag racing, fleeing from police, bribery, forgery. What about exploitation of disabled persons? That was added. So we want to release people without bail after they are exploiting disabled persons and senior citizens. Manslaughter, animal cruelty, racketeering, human trafficking, domestic terrorism, stalking, aggravated stalking. Those are the crimes that this particular bill is talking about. Next, let's look at 153 to 154. No person charged with a bail-restricted offense shall be eligible for release by any judge on an unsecured judicial release. That was related to the murder, robbery, kidnapping, rape, child molestation, sodomy, assault, battery, carjacking, pimping, drug trafficking, gangs, DUIs, family violence, stunt driving, drag racing, fleeing police, bribery, exploiting disabled persons and seniors, animal cruelty, violation of oath, domestic violence, racketeering, etc. Lines 163 to 168. It does say, any person arrested for an offense who has previously been convicted for a felony within the preceding 7 years. Let me tell you a personal story. So people in here know that I am a victim of stalking. Fulton County kept releasing the person that was stalking me. It got to the point, and stalking is on this list, it got to the point where I had to contact the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Violence Against Women, to say my county continues to release somebody that should not even have a bail. Now, what other just lay citizen will go through those extremes? Someone that wants to be protected, for one, and two, someone that knows that there are laws that people are supposed to be abiding by. I had to do the research myself. The layperson does not have the ability to do that. I had to research that myself, call the U.S. Department of Justice, because Fulton County kept releasing a person on bail that should not have been released on bail. Mr. Speaker, I yield the will.
The lady has yielded the well. Is there any objection to the previous question being ordered? Chair has none. The previous question is ordered. Okay. We have a minority report up to 20 minutes. I'll let y'all know who signed up on the minority report, and we have chair's time. You will be able to allocate the time appropriately amongst those who've signed up. Representative Jasmine Clark, Representative Ann Allen Westbrook, Representative Shay Roberts, and Representative Al Williams. Representative Jasmine Clark is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today I rise to ask you all to vote no on SB 63. I want to talk about our justice system. So when you require cash bail, that is a system that favors those with means. Now, to be clear, because a bunch of people have talked about being soft on crime, no one here is soft on crime. No one wants anyone to actually commit any crimes in our state or anywhere. In a perfect world, everyone would follow the rules all the time. Like, for example, there's a rule that if you have a conversation, you should take it to the anteroom. But we got people in here talking right now. In a perfect world, people would follow the rules. In fact, rules would not even need to exist at all. But this is not a perfect world, and sometimes people make bad decisions and they break those rules. And when they do, there should be consequences. But our justice system is supposed to be set up where you are innocent until proven guilty. That is what we all believe. You are innocent until proven guilty. Bail, however, is set before you have been found guilty of doing anything. When someone goes to jail prior to being convicted, they are technically, according to our justice system, incarcerated while innocent. Now, for some egregious or violent crimes, I think it just makes logical sense that in the interest of public safety, people be jailed. But bail is actually an acknowledgement that we can't just imprison people forever without at least convicting them first. So with that acknowledgement, bail allows people to put money down to get out of jail. So if you're accused of a crime and you don't have money, you stay in jail. But if you do the same exact crime, the only difference between being behind bars and being home with your family is your bank account. Your bank account. It's that simple. The crafters of this bill argue that it is to combat soft on crime policies. But what they fail to mention is that rich criminals can get out of jail. And they can get out of jail pretty easily. All they have to do is call mommy and daddy or the family attorney. And for some people, they don't even know what a family attorney is. Like, that whole concept is foreign to them. But some people can just call the family lawyer to come down to the courthouse with the checkbook and get them out of there. So that's the big picture. Requiring bail, even for misdemeanors, is another example of criminalizing poverty. But let's get into the weeds. This bill adds to the list of bail-restricted offenses, 31 new offenses. Some of those offenses would incarcerate people for things that are completely legal in other states. Seriously, y'all, possession of marijuana? Are we really trying to keep people in jail for weed? With all the things we have to worry about, we took the time to make misdemeanor possession of marijuana a bail-restricted offense in this bill. And just to remind you, the rich kid with a bag of weed will get out of jail in a couple of hours. It's the person with less means that may sit for a while. So I've heard a couple of people talk about victims. And so I'm just asking, I'm very curious, Who exactly is the victim of possession of marijuana? What victim are we saving in that situation? Some of the things on that list just do not make sense. I also want to point out, because someone came in the well and mentioned that this bill would bail restrict people convicted of, or people accused of murder, kidnapping, rape, stalking, and things like that. This bill does not do that. You know why? Because that's already existing law. So that is not true. That is not what the bill does. And if we're going to look at the words in a bill and talk about the words in the bill, let's understand that the only thing that this bill is doing is adding the lines that are underlined and striking the things that are struck. If it's not underlined or struck, it's already existing law. Those things were already bail-restricted offenses. This adds new bail-restricted offenses, and those offenses, some of which are ridiculous. We do not need to be doing this. SB 63 is another bill that makes no logical sense. It's a campaign strategy. It's something that will say, oh, I was hard on crime, while doing absolutely nothing for public safety. At the same time, we're going to overcrowd our jails. That's a problem that we already have. This won't fix that. We're going to invest millions of dollars in incarceration in our state. Costs less to educate than it does to incarcerate, but I don't see any bills that's actually trying to put more money into our education system. In fact, we got bills that are trying to take it away. Meanwhile, we're going to pass bills that are going to cost this state more and more money, local jurisdictions more and more money to keep people in prison. This is a bad bill. Nothing in this bill is actually solving a problem. It is a problem looking, or a solution looking for a problem. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I yield the rest of my time.
Lady has yielded well. Representative Ann Allen Westbrook is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon, colleagues. I rise to speak against SB 63 because, as applied and as written, it makes the bail system an unjust, two-tier system. Those who can afford bail get to leave and return to their families, jobs, homes, and lives, and those who can't. This is despite the constitutional promise of innocent until proven guilty. Those who can't afford bail risk losing families, jobs, homes, and quality of life, all the things we know help people thrive and avoid recidivism. And why is that important? Because we're talking about protecting life and property, and recidivism puts those at risk again. SB 63 brings no guarantee of public safety simply because someone can't afford to get out of jail. Is there really a legitimate public safety basis for a determination that there isn't a single felony that isn't a bail-restricted offense, even shoplifting or personal use controlled substance possession, or an offense involving someone with a serious and persistent mental illness who needs placement in a program? What does it mean that here in Georgia, where we already have a guilty but mentally ill statute resulting in a mentally ill person being sentenced as someone who isn't, but with the caveat that they may get some sort of treatment if there are allocated funds? What does it mean that as we on the one hand try to pass something like the Mental Health Parity Act, will we address the reality that sometimes the only way to get mental health treatment in Georgia is by getting a felony charge? My colleague, Rep. Kennard, in speaking to, I think, last week's Tough on Crime bill, noted that the largest provider of mental health services in Georgia is still our jails and prisons. And if the person can't afford to get mental health care treatment, they are more than likely not going to be able to afford bail. So a fiscal analysis was done on SB 504, and much of it applies as well to the SB 63 language. And an example of that fiscal burden, based on a data set obtained from my county sheriff's office, revealed that people admitted to jail and their charges between July 15th, 2020 and October 1st, 2021 created a significant financial burden on our state. $74.51 to house someone in Chatham County Jail per day. 6,546 total bookings. 1,099 of those were ordinances that charged at the city or county level, not a state misdemeanor. 5,447 bookings, 83.2% of our jail population then included misdemeanors and felonies. 4,941 of those charges were not considered bail-restricted offenses. So in 3 categories of current nonviolent, non-bail restricted offenses that would become bail restricted under SB 63, they found a cost of, on a typical bond hold in Chatham County of 72 hours, a total burden of $7,392,584. So I want to talk about some of the effects that SB 63 will have. In my county, it's going to exacerbate understaffed jails. In Chatham County, we are so understaffed that the roughly 1,200 detainees we have in our jail are currently on lockdown 23 hours a day. I'll also note that SB 63 does not make it clear how offenses like a fray, aka fighting, are handled. So if a 17-year-old is charged with a fray for fighting in school, this means they get taken to jail and sit there, as opposed to facing school disciplinary measures that were put in place for that specific purpose. Now, if it's, I'll note, like my colleague Representative Kendrick, I'm a graduate of the UGA, University of Georgia School of Law, class of 2001. And I'll note that my time in law school, working for the Legal Aid Clinic, was the sum total of my experience in criminal law. I was happy to move on to other areas of the practice when I graduated. But what we all learn, if we learn nothing else about bail, is that there is a specific constitutional purpose for bail, and that is to ensure the presence of the defendant in court. Because innocent until proven guilty is a bedrock constitutional principle. This bill has nothing to do with that constitutional purpose. It is plainly punitive. And it will be unequal justice, as my colleague Rep. Kennard noted. It will disproportionately affect the poor, disproportionately affect Black Georgians, and disproportionately affect mentally ill Georgians. So in closing, I'll just note, I've now been here 40 days, and I'm picking up on a few things. And one thing I'll note is that we think a lot of ourselves in this body. We know better than local judges hearing specific facts of specific cases. We know better than DAs, again, reviewing specific facts of specific cases in specific communities. And we know better than local government, too. I would argue that we could use a dose of humility in this body. Georgia is not New York or California. Georgia is not at risk of becoming New York or California, but we are very much at risk of moving backwards in this state, and SB 63 is just one more step in that process, one more rejection of the bipartisan, excellent legacy of Republican Governor Nathan Deal. It's the wrong direction to move, and I ask you to vote no on SB 63. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield the well.
The lady has yielded the well. Representative Roberts, she waives. Representative Al Williams is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was not in a hurry to come and speak to this bill, but a couple of things certainly moved me to do it. One thing is, and I'm from a rural county, and some unintended consequences are attached to this bill. Violent criminals need to be dealt with, and certainly bonds are appropriate. In the county I live, we've never had a problem that reaches the magnitude that I've heard here. And one of the things I hate is getting caught up in a lot of times urban politics. I spent a lot of years dealing with the criminal justice system. During my years in the civil rights movement, it was sometimes on the other side of the fence. But I remember a lawyer out of Dublin, Georgia. Chairman's not in here right now. His first name was Josh, and I can't remember his last name. But for his graciousness, I would have spent a lot more time on a very simple crime involving some picketing in Dublin. But he came and got me out without a cash bond. it bothers me that more and more we use the dog whistle. If we call the name California or New York, it inspires people to rush to action. I happen to like the artists that come out of California, and I enjoy the plays on Broadway. I happen to be a citizen of these United States, and I fear that we're spending too much time pitting states against states based on their decisions from an electoral standpoint. I have no business being involved with folk who are mad with their current DA or mad with a judge in their current situation. This is about just angry that the judicial system has changed some, but that's from people at the ballot box that changed it. And it's not like it used to be. And I contend to you that a lot of kids, young people too, who get in trouble in rural Georgia, they don't even have to get to the recognizant piece because they never make it to jail. They don't. That's the real deal. You just get to go home and your daddy's called, so you come down and pick them up and take them home. Unless you're not hooked up and got some contacts. That's difficult when you're outside of the hookup. I was at one time, I told folk I had more influence before I got here to this house of supposed influence. I was an honorary deputy in 4 counties. And I could pick up the phone and help folk. I did not help certain crimes. And victimless crimes, don't call me, and I gave my boys 2 talks. One of the talks was that if you go to jail for robbery, you go to jail for sexual offense, you go to jail for the selling of narcotics, please don't call me, because I'm not coming. But when you lose the compassion called a second chance, jail is too full of people who just never got a second chance because they didn't have the influence to wiggle around the system. In my county, we elected a new district attorney whom I'm getting to know. And for the first time in recent years, he's in the wrong party, Mr. Leader, I understand. But we wanted to show we'll elect a Republican every once in a while. Now, he wasn't elected by Liberty County alone, by the way, because Representative Whitehouse knows that might have not happened. But I trust the legal system. Sheriff and district attorneys and judges in rural counties, that's all I can speak for, they know the population. A young person goes for a victimless crime, no violence. Why put the stain on their record that they're going to live with? I'm not angry with district attorneys. Every once in a while, I scratch my head at some of the decisions, but I trust the electorate. I really do. This is not a place for personal animosity. We too mad with too many people. People you're not afraid of don't need to be in jail. If you're mad with them, that's a personal problem. This is not the place to enact self-serving legislation. We have too much stuff here. And now we've started to act like because you might have a more liberal view over here, you should live in California. I beg your pardon. Georgia is a great state, but it also is number 4 in incarcerations in this entire United States. So we ain't got a problem with locking people up. We never had. But if you can't afford a good lawyer, or you're not hooked up at the courthouse, you stand a chance. I'm down to 1 minute. I hadn't had that done since I was in a high school play. But anyhow.
Actually, you have 45 seconds.
See, your clock is wrong, Mr. Whip, so I'm going to listen to the speaker.
You take your time.
Let's take my time as long as it ain't over 40 seconds. But I implore you, let's get back to the business of setting laws that help everybody and not singling out those who we disagree with. This is not the place. We have some pressing issues, and we here want to lock boo-boo up for a little bit of marijuana, and he just needs to be taken home. And if boo-boo was coming home to me, he wouldn't have to worry about him being back in the system. But let's don't do this, and let's stop all of this division. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I like this light. You turn it on much too quick. That was 36 seconds that you turned it on. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'll leave the well.
Thank you, Representative Williams. He shielded the well. It's a very serious subject, and we certainly all take it that way. That concludes the minority report. We'll now move on to the chairman's time, up to 20 minutes. Chairman Tyler Paul Smith is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think that you probably timed this out right to have a Baptist speak right before lunch, so I will not be taking the full 20 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, I rise in support of Senate Bill 63, and you know, we've had some good arguments on both sides about what the law does and doesn't do. I just mentioned about being Baptist, so let me tell you a little bit about what a Baptist deacon at Corinth Baptist Church said to a young, impressionable man who just happened to be my father. Gave him some of the best advice I'd ever heard in my life. Thankfully, Father passed it down to me. Emery Hoyt Smith told my father that said, "Son, nothing good goes on after 11 o'clock at night." And I think all of us in this room probably found that out to be true, either by experience or seeing a friend of ours experience it. And you know, reflecting on that, it was good advice coming up as a young man, especially even in rural Georgia. You know, there's some folks get away with stuff. There's caught and uncaught. But you know, I was also reminded of what a minister said out in 29 Palms, California, a story that was relayed to me by my father when he was stationed there in the Marine Corps. And these words have also resonated with me. He's told all this group of young Marines that there's a time when you got to walk away from trouble and a time when you got to run away from it. Now, this is not an adjudication of guilt. Nothing in here adjudicates anybody being guilty of a crime. But what all of us need to do is to help our young folks to understand that if you run with dogs, you're going to get fleas. You might not be guilty of it, but you put yourself in these situations, there's a good chance something bad going to happen. You know, what I've heard today is, again, what I alluded to, I believe it was last week, about fallen humanity. And us having to make sure that we react to a fallen and depraved world that we live in. I'm sorry, y'all, that's what it is. And we have to react to it. I thank the good Lord every day that He instituted good government like ours here in the state of Georgia so we can deal with these problems. And you know, on looking at this, you look at a lot of it, and there were certain crimes that were pointed out. Notwithstanding whatever you may feel about marijuana, it's still against the laws of this state to have it, smoke it, and sell it. Until this legislature decides to take that off of the books, it's still a crime in the eyes of this state. Don't do it. There are many issues that have been talked about here today. Let me just talk to you about an issue that I did not hear about. I see broken families across this state. I see people that are hard up. In my law practice, I help single mothers, single fathers every day that I'm back home. I'm having to help deal with this. But instead of us talking about this issue or that issue, let's see what we can do as a legislature about getting families back together. Let's have these conversations. A lot of these young folks do not have good parents at home. Some of them do, and they're doing the best they can. They're working 9 to 5 or 6 to 6, 7 to 7, graveyard shift. I get it. But there are some other issues we have not discussed here today that have led us to this point. Let me just tell you something about bond. I appreciate the comments about poor people and rich people. I've been there before. But let me tell you about this. The judge, in their discretion, we're talking about taking away discretion, they do still have discretion under this bill. Under their discretion, somebody with money, the judge can stick it to them on the bond amount. Or, like they're doing here in the metro area, set a bond for a quarter. They can do that. Plain and simple. Nothing in this legislation prohibits them from setting bond, as Chairman Gaines noted, at a penny. Here's the thing. There has to be accountability, as I spoke to you about last week. We've got to make sure that we hold those accountable, hold the young folks accountable for making sure that they're keeping good company. You've got to emphasize that. And so, Mr. Speaker, with that, I'm not going to belabor the point anymore, but I'm going to yield this well and ask this body's favorable consideration on Senate Bill 63.
The gentleman has yielded the well. That concludes all of the discussion on the bill. Is there any objection to withdrawing the committee's substitute? Chair hears none. The committee's substitute is withdrawn. Is there any objection to adopting the substitute offered by the Committee on Rules? Chair hears none. The Rules Committee substitute is adopted. Is there any objection to agreeing to the report of the committee, which was favorable to the passage of the bill? Chair hears none. The report of the committee is agreed to. Shall this bill now pass? All in favor of the passage of the bill will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. For what purpose does Representative Mary Frances Williams rise?
Parliamentary question.
State your inquiry.
Mr. Speaker, is it not true that it is unfortunate that given the seriousness of this issue and the complexity of this legislation, that at no time were members of this body allowed to ask questions of the author or other folks?
I respect the opinion the lady states, but we did thoroughly debate the issue.
Further inquiry?
State your inquiry.
Is it not true that the questions that I wanted to ask related to specific charges that have been added? One of them was possession of marijuana, which has been spoken of a lot during debate. But one that has not been addressed is the one of unlawful assembly. Is it not true that often unlawful assembly is interpreted very different according to the law enforcement on the scene?
If the lady so states, I'm sure she's thoughtfully and compassionately thought about that. You have a further inquiry?
Is it not true that in my city of Marietta, that if someone is taken in and bond has to be posted. There is no space often in the county jail. I don't think we have a city jail anymore, and they've been taking people to the Smyrna jail. And often because of, and is it not further true that often due to all of the work that our law enforcement folks have to do, that they can't even get to posting bond for someone until possibly the next morning?
I'm sure the lady knows what she speaks. I'll take one more inquiry.
Is it not true that as a single mother, I did the best I could as a mom, and I didn't do the greatest job on that I could have, perhaps. Didn't have a dad within 1,000 miles. But is it not true that sometimes parents find their children doing things they wouldn't want them to do, regardless of what time it is and how much we may have worked to get them to go the other direction?
If the lady so states, this chair is sure she was a good mother. For what purpose does Representative Roberts rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Isn't it true that our current law already requires judges to confirm that an accused person will not create a substantial risk to public safety before they can release them? And isn't it further true that the only people who will benefit from this bill are the bondsmen? And isn't it further true that this is yet another bill where we are telling duly elected judges that we know how to do their job better? And isn't it further true that this will be one more unfunded mandate on our counties and cities because they will bear the cost of having to unnecessarily lock up more accused, not convicted Georgians? And finally, isn't it true, in light of Governor Deal's legacy, that it's unfortunate that this is partisan and only Democrats are opposing, well, not only Democrats, we have a few, and Republicans are supporting it? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
If the lady so states, I'm sure she passionately believes everything she just stated. I'm taking one more parliamentary inquiry. I have several of them, but we've debated this bill for quite some time, and it's been around for some time, so I'm going to recognize and ask, what purpose does Representative Bernal rise?
Parliamentary inquiry.
State your inquiry.
Is it not true, Mr. Speaker, that a lot of those children who have money come into the neighborhoods where other children who don't have a lot of money and can't afford an attorney, and that's where they come and purchase their drugs? Is it not true?
If the lady so states, I'm sure she has some insight into that. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the passage of the bill, the yeas were 95, the nays 81. The bill, having received the requisite constitutional majority, is therefore passed. For what purpose does Representative Park Cannon rise?
To make a motion,
State your motion.
I move that this body reconsider its action on that most recent measure.
Now is the time for the lady to pursue the motion if she so desires. Does the lady move?
I do.
On the lady's motion that the House reconsider this action and giving SB 63 the requisite majority. The time to vote this is right now, within the last 3 days. All those in favor of reconsideration will vote yes. All those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machines. Have all members voted? Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the lady's motion, the yeas are 76, the nays are 100. The motion is lost and the House has failed. Reconsider this action. SB 63 has passed. We have a group of privileged resolutions that the members have submitted. We're going to move to those privileged resolutions now. This will enable you to get a pretty copy of your resolution before you leave here so you can take back home and present to the appropriate person. So, Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption to a group of privileged resolutions?
Honoring the life and memory of Mr. Robert Louis Payne. Honoring the life and memory of Sergeant Terry Pancho Thompson. Honoring the life and memory of G. Robert Bob Howard. Recognizing and commending Brandy Cruz for going above and beyond to save the life of citizens in need. Recognizing and commending Reverend Dr. Kenneth B. Martin upon his retirement. Commending and congratulating Mother Thelma Roper Goldwire. Recognizing and commending Diana Ampoma. Honoring and commending Mr. Bishop Anajubi, CEO of International Trade Exchange, LLC. Commending the Waycross Ware County Chamber of Commerce and their leadership Waycross program. Congratulating and commending Solomon Ferguson. Recognizing the Honorable Thomas E. Brown. Congratulating and commending Master Sergeant retired Joyce Armster for receiving the 2023 Yellow Rose Nikki T. Randall Service Leader Award. Recognizing the positive economic impact of golf on the state of Georgia. Recognizing the week of March 13th through 17th, 2023 as School Board Appreciation Week in Georgia. Recognizing and commending President Benita Jacobs of North Georgia College and State University upon her retirement. Recognizing and commending Kawabina Poku Kautang. Recognizing and commending His Royal Majesty the Oba Aulu Owu of Owu Kingdom, Professor Saki Maktem Mi Lola. Congratulating and honoring Hart County Chapter 2026 of AARP Incorporated, commending Dr. Fred Mays, congratulating the University of Georgia School of Law, LM students, recognizing and commending Colonel retired Ron Rose, recognizing the third annual Yoruba Cultural Day celebration in Georgia on May 15th, 16th, 2023, recognizing and commending First Sergeant retired Franklin Brown, recognizing Dr. Mary Eleanor Wickersham, commending Jack Robinson, Modell High School's 2023 Star Student, recognizing and commending the 2023 Heart of the Community Award recipient, Melissa Phillips, commending Helene Akrei, Coosa High School's 2023 Star Student, commending Tanish Patel, Tryon High School's 2023 Star Student, commending Jeremy Villatoro, Chattooga High School's 2023 Star Student. Recognizing April 24 through 23, 2023 as Quality Rated Week in Georgia, and for other purposes. That completes the reading of the privileged resolutions.
Is there any objection to adopting the privileged resolutions? Chair hears none, and the resolutions are adopted. Thank you, members. As you all know, we've worked very hard this session to move legislation along and not try to have it pile up on us on day 40. So we're going to continue with that as we take up some further actions that will hopefully get us out of here before too late tonight. That is my goal. Chairman Newton is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that the House agree to the Senate substitute as amended by the House on House Bill 230.
Chairman Newton moves that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 230 as amended by the House. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Bill 230 by Representative Newton of the 127th and others to be titled an act to amend Chapter 8 and Title 48 of the Official Code of Georgia Annexator relating to sales and use taxes so as to provide for a qualified consolidated government special purpose local option sales tax.
Chairman Newton is recognized to explain the Senate substitute and the House amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. House Bill 230, this body passed with 165 votes, and it is allowing on our border county over in Augusta-Richmond County to build a regionally significant arena. A lot of the benefit goes across the river into South Carolina. This House Bill 230 allowed a half-penny sales tax because they do a lot of the shopping over in Georgia. It allows that a burden or benefit to be paid for partially by people out of state that will benefit from the arena. So we passed that with 165 votes. The Senate did add a cap on it for the cost of the project. What our amendment allows for, though, in the House is to make sure that we, in the bond, that we can have the interest that would be on that project as well covered. So our amendment just clarifies that the Senate's cap on the project will include the interest when the bond is issued.
Gentleman, yield for a question.
Certainly. Yes, sir.
Whip Park, to your left.
Thank you, Mr.
Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes,
Chairman, could you speak to some of the concerns raised in the Senate? I see here that there were 11 Republican senators who voted against this bill.
Certainly, I'd be glad to. It's a good question. There are some who really, we have different types of SPLOST agreements that go to property tax reduction, some for special projects. This deals with the consolidated government, and in particular with the fact that we're on the state border that would allow, once again, those who are benefiting across the state border to actually participate in paying for the project. And so there were some people who disagree with that process.
Does the gentleman yield for one additional question?
Certainly would.
Would the House amendment in any way alleviate those concerns, or do you think they'd still have those outstanding concerns?
No, I believe a number of the senators have expressed that they're okay with the project now, but I couldn't guarantee that all of them would change their mind. This just is really more of a clerical amendment to make sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, with
I see that. No further questions.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your support on House Bill 230.
Is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? Chair hears none, and the House amendment is adopted. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Bill 230 as amended by the House, all those in favor will vote yes. Those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? All members voted. If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion The yeas are 166 and the nays are 6. And the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Bill 230 as amended by the House. Chairman Perkle is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that that we agree to the Senate substitute to H.R. 256 as amended by this House.
Chairman Perkle moves that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 256 as amended by the House. Mr. Clerk, will you read the caption?
House Resolution 256 by Representative Perkle of the 169th and House Senate of the 170th, a resolution honoring the life of Miss Sophia Ruth Fisher and dedicating an interchange in her memory.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is our road dedication. So I think our posture is that we honor this resolution by all standing. Chair recognizes Chairman Perkle to explain the Senate substitute and the House amendment. Gentleman is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In addition to the 8 dedications previously passed by this House, the Senate added 7 dedications sent it back for our actions. This amendment, we're attaching 16 additional dedications and 1 location change to the Senate substitute, and I'll go through those now, if you would listen. H.R. 349, dedicating a bridge in DeKalb County as the Thomas E. Brown Bridge. Mr. Brown was a dedicated DeKalb County public servant, having been Public Safety Director, Fire Chief, and eventually Sheriff of DeKalb County. H.R. 385, dedicating a portion of highway in Toombs County as R.T. Stanley Jr. Highway. Mr. Stanley was among the core group of onion growers who fought to attain legal status of the sweet Vidalia onion. H.R. 386, dedicating the interchange in Butts County as a Congressman Mac Collins Memorial Interchange. Congressman Collins dedicated himself to service of his community and state, having served as a county commissioner, a state senator, and U.S. representative. H.R. 399, dedicating a portion of highway in Henry County as the Officer Paramons Desai Memorial Highway. Officer Desai led an exceptional career in public safety until he was killed in the line of duty while responding to a domestic violence call. H.R. 412, dedicating a portion of highway in Lowndes County as the Honorable Ellis Black Highway. Mr. Black served the citizens of this state for over 20 years in the General Assembly as a member of both the House and the Senate. H.R. 414, dedicating a portion of highway in Brantley County as a Caleb Driggers Highway. Mr. Driggers is a world champion roper and professional rodeo cowboy from Baconton, Georgia. H.R. 475, dedicating a bridge in Henry County as the Pastor Spencer T. O'Neill Memorial Bridge. Pastor O'Neill has dedicated his life to teaching the gospel and witnessing through word and deed those in and around his community. H.R. 491, dedicating an intersection in Chatham County as the Judge Willie Lovett Jr. intersection. Judge Lovett was the bow tie judge who had a 25-year legal career advocating for children and youth in the Fulton County Juvenile Court. H.R. 492, dedicating an intersection in Chatham County as the Flaw J. Johnson intersection. Ms. Johnson is one of the nation's youngest hip-hop and athletic ambassadors, having appeared on America's Got Talent. H.R. 493, dedicating an intersection of highway in Chatham County as the E. Larry McDuffie intersection. Mr. McDuffie is the founder and director of the Savannah Community Choir, the Savannah Mass Choir, and the WSOK Youth and Young Adult Choir. H.R. 522, dedicating an intersection in Clark County as the Vince Dooley Memorial Intersection. Coach Dooley served as a United States Marine and then became the head coach and eventual athletic director at the University of Georgia. H.R. 523, dedicating a portion of highway in Greene County as the PFC John W. Adams Memorial Highway. PFC Adams served his nation in the United States Army and gave the ultimate sacrifice when he was killed in action in 1944, sacrifice that earned him the Purple Heart. H.R. 524, dedicating an interchange in Fulton County as the Jamaica Orange Memorial Interchange. Mrs. Orange was a leader and civil servant who dedicated her life to serving the Atlanta community, working for the City of Atlanta and the DeKalb Probate Court. H.R. 525, dedicating an intersection in Fulton County as the Marshall Rancifer Memorial Intersection. Mr. Rancifer, inspired by his own recovery, has helped serve others through his organization, the Justice for All Coalition, which provides outreach to those unhoused and those in need of transitional housing. H.R. 545, dedicating an intersection in Lumpkin County as the Opal G. Crawford Barron Memorial Roundabout. Mrs. Barron was a lifelong resident of Lumpkin County, serving as a teacher's aide at Riverbend School and operating a successful business for over 40 years. And finally, H.R. 602, dedicating a portion of highway in Fulton County as the Charlene Hunter Galt Parkway. Mrs. Hunter Galt was a pioneer in the integration of the University of Georgia on January 9, 1961, as one of 2 African-American students to enroll. She graduated in 1963 with a degree in journalism. This is the changes to the House Resolution 256. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, members, for your attention. Is there any objection to the adoption of the House amendment? The chair hears none, and the House amendment is adopted. On the gentleman's motion that the House agree to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 256 as amended by the House, all those in favor will vote yes, those opposed will vote no, and the clerk will unlock the machine. Have all members voted? If so, the clerk will lock the machine. On the gentleman's motion, the yeas are 175, the nays are 0, and the House has agreed to the Senate substitute to House Resolution 256 as amended by the House. Good work, all those involved on the committee, and it's wonderful to acknowledge the service to our state and to mankind by these road namings. Thank you, members. Chairman Meeks is recognized for a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I move that this House insist on its position regarding House Bill 189 and appoint a committee of conferees.
Clerk will read the caption.
House Bill 189 by Representative Meeks, the 178th, and others to be titled an act to amend Article 2, Chapter 6, and Title 32 of the Official Code of Georgia annotated relating to dimensions and weights of vehicles and loads.
Is there objection? Clerk, chair hears none. The House has insisted. The chair appoints Representative Meeks of the 178th, Representative Jasper of the 11th, and Representative Burchett of the 176th House District as a committee of conference on HB 189. We've completed further actions. We have a couple of announcements before we break for lunch and some other important opportunities that we will have today. Chairman Corbett. Chairman Corbett. Does this have anything to do with food?
It absolutely does.
Let's hear about it.
Well, good afternoon, colleagues. The Rural Caucus will be meeting upon adjournment. The menu for today: crusted pork medallion, smothered chicken, mac and cheese, yams, green beans, carrot, butter, and chocolate cake, sweet tea, iced tea, and lemonade. Y'all come join us, please.
I know where I'm going. I'll be there. Vice Chair Representative Karen Bennett's recognized for an announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, colleagues. The Democratic Caucus will meet in CLOB room 514 now, and lunch will be served. Thank you.
How could I forget the rules, Chairman? No way. Can't forget the rules, Chairman. Y'all think I should recognize the rules, Chairman? No. Chairman Richard Smith is recognized for an announcement.
Oh, this is painful. Rules will meet at 2 o'clock, and there will be no food.
I know where I'm not going. Okay, here's our posture. This House will stand in recess until 2:15 p.m. Rules will meet at 2 p.m. This House stands in recess.